Welcome to Unapologetic Atheism. Here, we reject the idea that religion deserves reverence simply because it's old, powerful, or popular. We believe religions are untrue and promote an inherently harmful denial of reality. Our mission is simple: to end religion's dominance over our lives and to end it now. Not someday, not when it's convenient, not when everyone feels ready, now. This is the anti-altar call, an opportunity to undedicate your life to Christ, reclaim your autonomy, and join a community of secular humanists committed to uplifting marginalized voices, defending science, and fighting for the genuine liberation of human beings everywhere. I'm Dr. J. Bundy, aka Pocket Locker 86, an evolutionary biologist, biological anthropologist, and educator currently teaching anthropology and sociology at the collegiate level. I'm a former Christian youth minister and program director from a family of 5 generations of ministers. A church drummer and audio engineer turned scientist, organizer, political strategist, and unapologetic truth teller. It used to be my job to preach the gospel to kids. Now it's my mission to share the good news that the irrational gods we were taught to fear and obey do not exist. If you're here to think freely, live boldly, and build a better world rooted in reality instead of mythology, welcome. This is Unapologetic Atheism. Let's lock in.
Ready for takeoff?
Zach. Whoa. Working hard on my stump, what's the problem? I ain't had shit to show, being modest. Now it's grams of the wax for my conscience. Bron James in LA, you're on college. I've been jumping on them planes like a hobby. Still moving with the pack like my partners. Just the John on them jets cause you wildin'. But the bowl is a party on the island, moment of silence. So good, get back to the topic. Grew up, it was me and Flocka. Grandma's and Big T, this my mama. I ain't even for the pain when my pots flip. Knew his name, that's it, never bothered. Mom said, you the man, son, you got this. Ever since I found a way to go and pop shit. Hold up, blaze through a whole zip. Took a seat at the table of my first flip. Days in red roof with my first whip. Split the money with the gang, never post pics. Seen a change in the game, had to coach it. Never let them take my wangs in the mold, bitch. Ever made in a month, nigga. Used to serve him at the minute just to front, nigga. Goddamn. Had to grow up quick, I made my own rules. Had my first child, got it jumping with music. Can't really hang with nobody who losing. I thought by now that you would go and get it, but I could hardly see niggas this distant. Know you get cropped if you not in the picture. And I made that tag and went got a bag. Shots to the Henny and OG prescriptions, put rebel shit on the map. Took a leap from where I started at. Started ballin', now I'm Chris Paul and Cats. Got him steady calling for the mold, but I'm on a roll, gotta call him back. And that's all fact.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. All carry-on items should now be stowed securely, either in an overhead bin or under the seat in front of you. All aisles, exits, and bulkhead areas should now be clear. All electronic devices should now be turned off and stowed, as they may interfere with the aircraft's navigational and communication systems. Once airborne, we'll let you know when you may use approved electronic devices, but note that some items may not be used at any time during the flight. You'll find a list of approved devices in the in-flight information section.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Pocket Locker Podcast. I'm your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. Thank you all for joining me here on a late night edition. It's just been a fucking weird fucking period. I don't know, gang. My head been all over the place. There's a lot of fucking bullshit going on. A lot of fucking, I don't know. Almost the holidays or what? This is weird, but anyway, looking forward to New Year's. I think Cuzzo and me gonna do a little get together for the new year. Kick 2025 out on its ass. Reserve it to the fucking dustbin of history. This year cannot go away fast enough. But yeah, I just had some fucking shit on my mind that I've really been wanting to talk to y'all about for a while, and I've just been distracted with a lot of other shit. Kind of getting things together with this little studio here. Y'all don't understand. I spend so much time in this fucking studio, and I'm such a fucking studio tech nerd that like the studio is an extension of my brain. So when the studio is not organized, the shit's not connected, it feels like my brain doesn't work properly. And then once I like organize and like label and like get everything in the studio like I want it, it's like all of a sudden like the channels of my brain just over, so I can see clearly now. The rain is gone. All right, we got a lot to talk about. So basically we're going to be talking about movement capture. And for those of you that been following along at home or pay attention to this channel, you know, I've been getting real pissed off lately about liberal whitewashing, and people who are new to the channel like, well, liberal whitewash, what the fuck? Yeah, like I know I'm a black atheist, secular leftist or some shit like that. I'm supposed to be, I guess, anti-MAGA in America first, and I spend most of my fucking time bitching about white liberals. It is what it is. It is. I am who I am. God damn it. I have my lived experience is what it is, and I have to say what I have to say. just fucking hit the subscribe and the notification thingy and watch a bunch of videos. You'll figure it out soon enough. All right, let's go ahead and jump into today's content. We got a little double feature for you, but before we jump into that, we got a little bit of a clip. The clip's a good time. It's fun. We're gonna laugh about Turning Point USA and Grindr. All right, it's fun, but there's a bit of a side point to make here. Let's go.
Just want to make sure I got this straight here. Turning Point USA hosts an event, and they have some of the worst, most despicable human beings as speakers. And in those lectures, if you could even call it that, they invoke Jesus and God so many times.
So many times.
And this is the same organization that is pushing religious indoctrination by also misconstruing what their famed document says about homosexuality.
And there it is. And it's just a little bit, it's just a chef's kiss. It's just a little bit of a moment, but that's all it takes to just slide headfirst into the liberal whitewashing, particularly of Christianity. Why? Because so many liberals, white and otherwise, but whites in particular, are still heavily invested in Christianity. Mostly like it's tribal. Like I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's tribal, and they were born into this tribe. And to be honest, the tribe's a fucking cult. And it's really abusive. There's another thing I really want to stream about. There's a lot of things I really want to stream about. There's a lot I have to really say on this channel, and I'm learning how to find my voice. So there's going to be much more. But one of the things that I really want to talk about is just this whole allegiance everybody has to this cult. And I want to do a stream about how my family is the cult. Like I know a lot of times we talk about like, oh, this person's in a cult, that person's in a cult. Is this a cult? Is that a cult? And no. If you were raised with Christianity the way I was raised with Christianity, your family has been so thoroughly indoctrinated and brainwashed and emotionally and psychologically crippled by this cult that the cult really needs to do next to nothing anymore to keep these people being so toxic and oppressive. And they've internalized it to the degree that they now act it out on their own. And so that's what I mean when I say they've become the cult. Like it's no longer they're like subject to the cult. It's like the cult could fucking fuck off. The cult doesn't really even have to tell them anymore. They just do it on their own. And I think that what happens is people somewhere in their back of their mind, they know how fucking gross and severe and fucking rancid these people are. But like, there's so like much discomfort in thinking about that it's far easier to just pretend that there really is this like nice, lovely, wonderful Christianity, and then also to pretend that like that's the true Christianity, which is really problematic. And it ties into some other liberal whitewashing that happens really in terms of like politics and history. Like these things always go together: politics, history, religion. Like, pay attention to the social sciences. I don't know what to fucking tell you. So part of this whole deal that is like super problematic is when you do that, you actually reify the problem. Like when you say like, oh, there's this great Christianity and it's awesome, and when these people say these really bad, mean things, they're perverting Christianity, or they're contorting it, or they're distorting it, or they're doing it wrong or whatever. You think what you're doing is saying like, oh, there's a nice way and you should do it the nice way. And that's generally just bullshit because it's just not true. But on top of it not being true, it's also really problematic because it suggests that true Christianity is what we need. That like that Christianity itself is not the problem. It's this misinterpretation of Christianity that continues to run amok. Then we don't have to look at the problem being Christianity itself. And so then what we do is we have this stand-in. We say like, oh, there's the true Christianity. Well, what's the true Christianity? Of course, you're never going to be able to get away from the true Christianity being biblical and being, about all the essential fucking Christian doctrine, and all of them are fucking problematic and gross. And so, but even worse than that, what is it? The Bible is abhorrent. The Bible is the source of all the bullshit. So when you uphold this ideal, quote unquote, true Christianity, you actually reinforce biblical authority and the authority of the church. And then when you look at the truth of the Bible and the truth of the church, it's actually the fucking bullshit. So that's a problem. That's why it's such an issue. That's why we have to address this head on. I know a lot of y'all are over religion. You don't like talking about religion, or a lot of y'all think it's useless, or a lot of y'all think we should just like focus on making them better people, and then we don't have to like have this uncomfortable ass conversation about religion. It's like they're not going to be better people as long as they believe this fucking nonsense. You should be able to like, we all have to put our big kid pants on and understand what people think determines what they do, and people are not going to do the good thing while they have this poison fucking thoughts. Okay, so yes, I hate religion. I wish I could and it's just gone and we could all move on and never talk about it again. But as far as I'm concerned, it is literally the biggest fucking social problem we are facing right now. And for some reason, nobody wants to talk about it, especially not white people, not even white liberals in the middle of literally a Christo-fascist theocracy and takeover, like in real time. And they're like, nah, we still should just not go there. Y'all gotta stop. But listen to this.
Religious indoctrination by also misconstruing what their famed document says about homosexuality.
Right, misconstruing what the document says about homosexuality. And again, I'm gonna do this. Y'all already know what I'm gonna do, so whatever. my goodness. All right. So of course I looked up Bible passage on homosexuality, and the first thing that pops up is Leviticus 18:22. So now we're gonna just flip on over here to Bible Gateway, and we're gonna do the good old Uncle Bobby test. Let's start with the New International Version. Do not have sexual relations with a man as done with a woman. That is detestable. All right, let's see. Let's go with the New King James Version. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. What about the good old voice? You are not to have sexual relations with a man in the same way you do with a woman. Such a thing is detestable. Let's try the Amplified Bible. You shall not lie intimately with a male as one lies with a female. It is repulsive. And just for shits and giggles, let's do one more. What about the good old English Standard Version? You shall not lie with a man as with a woman. It is abomination. Can I get like the next one? Is there like a next? That's a little side panel. Can I get like the next verse or whatever the fuck? What is this? 18:22 or some shit like that. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is abomination. And you shall lie not with any animal, and to make yourself unclean. Neither shall any woman. It's a perversion. Like what? Like what? What? Like what? What? I don't understand. Anyway, I'm really tired of people doing that. Like I'm like pissed. Like why? It's not a contortion or a misinterpretation. It says what it says. It says the homophobic thing.
Yet from the reports I am seeing, Grindr is out. Grindr is out in the same location that this entire festival is going on. That would also follow the theme when the RNC in Milwaukee, Grindr had an outage. That would also follow another example, the Charlie Kirk Memorial, when Grindr went out.
Also, just for completeness, I realized I actually grabbed the Leviticus passage that doesn't include the fucking sentence. Just for completeness, let's just throw up the one that does. Warning, trigger warning, genocide described. If a man also lieth with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Or, as Uncle Bobby likes to say, their death shall be on their hands. What part of this am I not understanding? And again, I just need all the liberals out there to just understand that that's what that Bible says. Now, talk to me about how good it is again.
I know that there are some people who are working what is going on in the area, and they probably have a lot of information. If there are legislators who are attempting to revoke your rights as a member of the LGBTQ plus community and make you out to be a scapegoat with what is wrong with this country, and that legislator is in the closet, I feel like that is an important piece of information for the American public to know.
There's something fascinating.
Maybe. Oh, you know what? We should actually do a stream on that. That's why it played. It played because it's on my stream about these things. It's like the glorification of white crime. It's a whole thing I got into it with my students, and then I saw that really good video about it, and I was like, all right, yeah, we should do a stream on it since I do talk about it in class. All right. All right. So why are we here today? We're here today to talk about movement capture, but of course I have multiple things I'm trying to accomplish at once. So I'm a big fan of this Park Rose Permaculture, I think is the name. Yeah, Park Rose Permaculture is the name of the channel. OG, she's cool. Big fan, probably one of my favorite content creators. But as with many of my beloved content creators, there's still some of that white lib stuff going on that I think we need to address. And so I think she does a really good job of talking about movement capture. And I think we need to talk about movement capture, especially those of us that are really trying to push secularism and progressive things and leftist and stuff like that, because it's a real problem. And at the same time, I'm going to suggest that there are certain targets that we need to be thinking about when it comes to movement capture that are a little bit more uncomfortable, but in reality, I think, for instance, this entire atheist online quote unquote community content creation thing or whatever is totally movement captured. So we'll get into that. And then we'll talk also about how I think even in one of her recent videos, like many others, I don't think she's as vigilant maybe as I'd like to see when it comes to movement capture from white liberals, particularly with regard to liberal Christianity. I have a real problem with this whole liberalizing of Christianity, if you haven't figured that out. I'm sort of figuring it out myself, why it angers me so much. But yeah, we'll keep working through it here on the channel. All right, gang. Hope everybody's having a good holidays. It is absolutely delightful to see all of you. Like I said, it's just been a weird time, and so that's why I haven't streamed as much as I would have liked to. But it's all good. I'm here, and good to see PC. Of course, the lovely, lovely, lovely Kyle. We've got Skeptic Humanism in the house. Oh, boycott white privilege. That is also a lovely, lovely, lovely person. It's the same. We'll see. All right. And then who else we got? We got AR in the house and my main man, Nitty. Nitty. Love me some Nitty. Happy holidays to everybody, gang. Good to see y'all. Nitty, you got to get in that goddamn work adventure. We got to plan an event. We gotta get you back DJing, man. We need that shit. We need a good dance party up in this bitch. All right, let's roll.
Are you familiar with the term movement capture?
Whoops. I fucked that up.
With the term movement capture, because if not, you need to get acquainted real quickly. Whether you volunteer with a nonprofit working for a social justice, pro-democracy, environmental, human rights cause, etc., whether you're interested in how social movements form and advance, including the one that we are involved in right now, or whether you are a consumer of independent media, you tell I'm going to bring it back around to the last one real hard. You need to know what movement capture is. So,
yeah, AR. That's kind of where this is headed, honestly, unfortunately. Christianity is always going to lean towards conservatism, and it's also always going to lean towards white supremacy and patriarchy and misogyny and racism and homophobia and anti-queerness and so importantly, anti-human everything and anti-science and anti-education and child abuse. Okay? Child abuse, everything from look the other way when pastor does certain things to that being grooming of people looking the other way with all this Epstein shit when it's politically expedient, all the way through how many children continue to be beaten because the Bible told their parents, spare the rod, spoil the child. There's just a whole thing, okay? Now, we have to hold a couple things together, which is, and this is what people struggle with, keeping Christianity in the forefront, continuing to center Christianity will always support those things. It will always lean into that. That's lots of reasons, but it always will. And on top of that, leaning into those things will always reify Christian dominance. So that's why it's a problem when, for instance, the atheist quote unquote community or quote unquote movement becomes captured by white men in the interest of white men, right? Because again, that makes it beholden to patriarchy, misogyny, racism, right? The same motherfucking list. The same motherfucking list. So then when we keep that same list of people and isms in place, who gets to come out on top of that fucking heap, the winner and the victor every goddamn time? The motherfucking white Christians. Why is that? Because they set the shit up to be that way. So you can't take down Christianity without taking down the motherfucking patriarchy. Yeah, people need to realize that. All right, let's continue.
Movement capture refers to the process where a larger, well-financed benefactor or partner captures a social movement by overly influencing or directing entirely the original goal or mission of the movement. Another word for movement capture is co-optation, where the billionaires, the dark money, those with power and influence, swing in, and they, either through funneling money into an organization or paying their folks to infiltrate an organization or a movement.
Okay, but now let's think about this in our spaces, right? It's not just wealth. It's not just like ad revenue. We could talk about that, right? We could talk about that even with regards to the left, right? For instance, we could talk about, oh, I'm a leftist, so I'm anti-capitalist now, and so when I go to the grocery store, I buy Magic Spoon instead of Kellogg's. And right, and for most people, like, it's pretty obvious what the problem is there. And maybe there's some way that when it comes to corporate responsibility or whatever the fuck, buying Magic Spoon is objectively better than Kellogg's because of monopoly and blah blah blase and flavonoids. But the larger point remains that it's still it's an act of substitutionary capitalism, right? It's reifying the same system. It's just picking a different brand. It's not fundamentally challenging the system of why do people have to have jobs and spend money buying groceries that are advertised to them or whatever the fuck it would be. I don't even know, because the point isn't to make it this whole diatribe about food politics, but to see how easy it is for us to get caught up in sort of a leftist capitalism rather than burning capitalism to the ground. Also, the point I wanted to make is that it's not just about the money like that. When you think about the atheist space in particular, it's not really necessarily about money, although it is about money in the sense that people are trying to maintain proximity to influential people and organizations with the hopes of creating economic opportunities for themselves, either in the short term or long term, right? But it's also about like influence peddling and sort of like coercive influence, right? And people don't realize, especially because so many people, I think, especially who consume the content, who may be like, I don't know, more steps removed from content creators and maybe like how they are in real life or off air at least, or you know how they move socially, and there's like people would be probably really alarmed if they realized the amount of like coercive manipulation that happens. But that is like another layer to it, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, I have all this money. It could literally be like, I'm a gatekeeper to your access to a particular platform, or If you piss me off, you really will probably not have certain opportunities granted to you down the line. Or people who are like buttering you up, and you're part of the in crowd, and being part of the in crowd comes with opportunities, maybe like speaking engagements and book tours and debates and conversations with other influential people and all this type of stuff. But if you like step out of line socially or politically, then like all of those things are like taken from you. So there's a lot of ways that people do this, and there's a lot of movement capture that happens like behind the scenes. And it can be just as problematic. And it's really interesting seeing it all play out in our community, because it says that like it's not really about necessarily the payoff economically. It's not necessarily about there being life-changing money involved, or it's not about like fame, like where like it's like, oh, if you're in with this person, you're gonna get millions of subscribers. Like it could be very small. It could be very much about who's a slightly bigger fish in a very, very small pond, and who can sort of like maneuver you in a way to cut off certain opportunities for you. And so it says something much broader about human nature that we have to be concerned about even in a much smaller community, because it's really not just about necessarily politically powerful or economically powerful interests.
Actually take over that movement, and they navigate it the way they want it to go in order to protect their own power, in order to conform the world to their worldview, to shape society in a way that continues to benefit them. In a nation where we are living under a kleptocracy, where the billionaires, the oligarchs, are given tremendous amounts of power, where corruption is the name of the game, where our Supreme Court has decided that corporations have the rights of people, where dark money is everywhere in our politics, in our government, in our media ecosystems. We have to understand what movement capture is and how it happens. We have to be aware of when the cause we care about, or the platform that we think is independent, or the progressive candidate who got elected and suddenly is changing his tune and voting for crypto bro legislation that benefits the regime, for example, or voting for the Laken Riley Act, for example. I mean,
right. And you gotta see where this goes, right? Or the feminists that really don't actually stand up for women or women's rights, or fight to make spaces safer for women, right? Or marginalized groups who don't stand in solidarity with other marginalized groups, but maybe hide behind their marginalization in order to extract resources from other people, or sending super chats to atheist organizations that really just exist to take your money and profit off of your religious trauma, rather than to actually do anything about fighting against the social and institutional forces that continue to produce generational trauma, because they don't actually care about that religious trauma. They just care that that religious trauma is something they can get motherfucking paid off of, right? And so then when you send them money and you're like, yes, I just took this money, this like hard-earned money that I probably could have like done something really productive with, like, I don't know, bought myself a sandwich, or brought one of my neighbors a sandwich, or sent to like a content creator who's worth a damn. But instead, like, I was like, oh, I'm going to send it to these people. And I'm like, oh, that felt so good. That helped me really fight the power. And really, they're like, nah, you just helped us keep the lights on, but we don't really have any intention on fighting any power. We don't do that. We just collect super chats. That's what we do. All right, right? Or you go to a fucking convention, right? And think about it. It's a lot of fucking commitment to go to a goddamn convention, unless you're like fucking wealthy. And even then, like, it's still gotta drop a pretty penny on that hoe. But for most of us, like, you've got to make decisions and like constrain yourself. Like, you can't go on but so many trips a year, and you got to like save up for that shit, and you got to book hotels and travel and you don't cook when you're fucking traveling, so you spend money on food, and you might not have the fucking right clothing for that part of the country or that part of the world. Y'all know what I'm saying. It's some goddamn shit that goes into it. You understand what I'm saying to you, right? It's a lot of fucking planning and resources you put into that shit. And again, you feel like you're just doing this fucking great thing because this organization is secular and it's atheist. It says it in the title. It says like secular atheist humanist group. That's what we should start calling them. They're all called the secular atheist humanist group. Y'all fill in the fucking real names. Y'all know the fucking real name doesn't matter. They're all the goddamn same. They all sound the goddamn same. The secular atheist humanist group. So you go to the secular atheist humanist group motherfucking convention, you spend like, I don't know, somewhere between a few hundred and a few $1,000s to fucking attend that shit. And lo and behold, they're like taking that money and like, I don't know, sitting on it and fucking rotating, doing white boy shit, playing in fucking dialogues about contingency or objective morality, or is the Bible actually racist? No, I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you think that like, yes, like I'm fighting against the motherfuckers that are fucking doing the goddamn Christo-fascism, and like, nah, not really. You're really just giving money to like their poker buddies, and they're just gonna like, I don't know, buy some like triple wood barrel whiskey cigar smoked shit and play poker with fascists with your money. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm talking about anybody in particular, but just that type of thing, you know?
We have to understand how dark money, billionaire money, comes in
What's
and
up, Hillwood?
purchases movements, just good causes.
The only
How it twists-
racist I see today are blacks. Woo! Oh, rebuke and reprove. You called me on a good one, man. That was good. That was good, man. I know that that's supposed to be really vile and offensive, and in some universe it is. But goddamn, you were just so fucking dumb. Sometimes, like, you're having to live with that level of ignorance and stupidity is its own comeuppance. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's always the type that would never pop off like that. Really around some black folk. You know what I mean? Like, you know, come through the neighborhood and talk like that. And if they ever did, you know, it's like, we could take them out back and beat the fuck out of them. But I think having to live just being that fucking stupid is like way worse. And we wouldn't want to like have him like fall and like hit his head and actually gain IQ points. You know, you'd be worried that if fucking with a traumatic brain injury, he'd recover like some sort of normal cognitive adult ability or some shit like that. Just God. And then rebuking him, say religious too. Wow.
And changes the narrative from independent media, how it can buy elected officials, how sometimes those folks and those organizations are bought and paid for from the beginning, and they just have this veneer. There's just this like facade of them being legitimate, organic as a movement. There's straight up dissembling going on. Movement capture itself, though, definitely involves a legitimate grassroots organization, a legitimate social movement, a legitimate cause that, like any good cause under an oligarchy, is struggling to find funding, and then money comes in and says, we're just going to give you this money to continue to do the good work that you're already doing. There's definitely no strings attached. We're definitely not going to use our money and power and influence to take over your social movement and steer it the way we want it to go. Either just tweak it a little bit or totally take it off the rails, sometimes even drive it into the ground on purpose. Movement capture, co-optation is something that the wealthy use on purpose to sabotage the success of a movement, to prevent that movement from attaining.
And see, that is the thing that people don't understand about movement capture when this shit happens. That these motherfuckers are here to make sure what you want does not happen. And that understanding absolutely changes how you move, right? Because when you move in such a way as like, oh, I'm operating under the assumption that because it says secular atheist humanist group, we're all aligned, that by me giving money and supporting this organization, I'm helping my goals come about. When actually, you're probably doing exactly the opposite. And so that's why, like, I could just tell you, that's why, like, I'm pretty much boycotting every atheist organization. Whew. And I do mean every atheist organization. Like, because they've all been captured to me. You know, I could save this the big punch line for the end or whatever, but there's really no point. There's so much else to get into. So we've got plenty to talk about. But trust me, that's where I'm at with it. Is I do think they're captured. They've been captured by some old boys club that only allows marginal tokenization at best. Usually, literally, only to take up space, to occupy the space for atheism, for secularism, for humanism, to sort of be to suck up all the oxygen, especially on the left, and then direct it all to activities like just endless, useless fucking debates and conversations and shit. That's good for their money making. That just says like, oh, here's a formula for some content that you can use to extract money from people. Let's just keep doing that. And really, no real motion. No. These organizations have less than zero momentum. So yeah, I'm just like totally out with all of them. And same for most of the popular content creators. Like most of the shit that if it like pops up on my feed, it's just like an instant unsubscribe, don't recommend channel to me. You know, some stuff I might watch just for whatever, for the content or for the critique of it, but in terms of positive engagement, like I just feel like it's all bullshit. And yeah, sorry, that's just where I'm at.
Its goal. Forge Organizing had a really good piece way back in 2021 on this, and it had to do with movement capture and the Black Lives Matter movement. The piece is by Megan Ming Francis and Erica Cole Arenas, and I'm just going to share a little bit of it with you. I encourage you to go read the whole piece. After the murder of George Floyd, a global uprising against systemic racial injustice was ignited. During the initial weeks of the uprising, millions of people took to the streets to protest, but big philanthropy was relatively quiet. As the protests waged on in June and into July, many philanthropists and foundations eventually named structural racism as a problem and issued statements of solidarity with the protesters. And under mounting pressure from staff to back up their words with money, corporate philanthropy and foundations ramped up their response by increasing investments in racial equity work. The $12 billion in commitments between June 2020 and January 2021 constituted the largest giving in the area of racial equity in philanthropy's entire history. I mean, you wonder why rescinding DEI policies was one of the initial goals of the regime. And how is it that they positioned themselves to do that so neatly and quickly? Let's continue here. But what does this flurry of action around racial equity in the philanthropic sector actually mean? Is it a real sign of transformative change? Foundation leaders may have issued statements in support of racial justice, but most were still uncomfortable naming the institution of policing or the system of violent racial capitalism as problems. After all, these philanthropists rely on the system of exploitive racial capitalism in order to maintain their wealth and power. So they're not just policing and carceral systems. It can still do much more to support social movements for racial, economic, and social justice. Philanthropists could start by pledging not to repeat the mistakes of the past, specifically the practice by which private philanthropy uses its influence to shape the agenda and strategies of civil rights organizations. History is rife with examples of what Megan Ming Francis, one of the authors of this article, has dubbed movement capture.
Okay, and so this is like where, you know, shit starts to get kind of nuanced, because I want to talk about sort of because I've been talking about these things that are very like they're big and they're systemic, and yes, I do believe they're very intentional, but there's a lot of ways that people can go along with the captured movement and not realize it. And so one of the things that happens, and it's why been trying to talk more about race. I do feel like race is central to the way I view American life in particular, but life in general. And one of the things that's very frustrating about both observing the way white people operate and having to being one of the feeling like you're in there with them. Like there's a difference, like for people of color and various marginalized groups, those of us that have been sort of socialized into like more predominantly white spaces, and we're accepted into those spaces, like, yes, we're considered privileged, and usually that is the result of things that involve privilege, but it's also very exhausted, and it comes with a certain psychological burden and just lots and lots of issues. But that's what I'm referring to. Like it's like different. It's not a universal experience. But anyway, what is frustrating is that racial issues are not just about representation. They're about how we structure recognition, how we facilitate thought. Like it's like how we reason and think together. Like, let me touch on why I called the stream's title what I did, and it's something I'll come back to, but I titled it very intentionally. One, to be something you would click on, but two, also to be something I would sort of have to defend, and so that it's not just clickbait. And so what do I mean when I say, like, white people don't trust other white people? There's a way in which when I hear how whites, especially like white liberals, discuss negotiating power, it's very clear that they're only comfortable doing so in ways that continue to center and privilege whiteness. And that's what I mean when I say it's not just about representation. Like, a lot of times people want to say, like, oh, like I'm committed to diversity, or I'm committed to like ending misogyny or ending white supremacy or whatever it is. And so now you're like, okay, so like what would our group look like if it were diverse? And so then we go about, like, you know, going from a white box of crayons to the multicolor box of crayons. But what we miss in the process is that, like, it's not just the composition and the ethnicity or the whatever characteristics of the people. It's like, whose voice do we hear? And how do those voices have to be presented? Who's allowed to dissent? And what form can that dissent take? Who signs off on the solutions? Who even determines what the goals are? Who even gets to name what the actual problems are? Who gets to decide who's qualified to solve the problems? See what I'm saying? So when the secular atheist movement becomes just infested with white dudes, most of whom I'm gonna hit it with another problem that comes with this particular form of movement capture, and that's the problem of amateurism. People would rather hear what they want to hear from someone unqualified than what they need to hear from someone qualified. So you have these people who literally, a lot of them, like, I hate to say this, but they were very recently fucking assholes. They were very recently bigots. They were very recently like conservative evangelicals or whatever the fuck, the list goes on and on. Preachers, ministers, wannabe apologists, whatever the fuck it is, right? And in addition to that, most of them have like zero formal training or education when it comes to the things. And like that's fine. Like if you want to be self-taught when it comes to like philosophy and lots of things, there's lots of things you can get really, really educated on. But then there's also going to be lots of gaps. And it becomes really problematic when you don't know the difference between the things you've done a pretty decent job of self-educating on versus the things you never even knew you really should have gone to school to learn. And so you have so many people who have crowned themselves leaders or activists, or you know, they're in charge of these organizations, or you know, they've amassed these followings, and they don't really have the credentials, to put it nicely. This is about the nicest way I can say it. They just really don't have it. They don't have it by way of lived experience. They don't have it by way of professional expertise. They don't have it by way of formal education. They don't have it by way of formal training. They just don't have it. And literally their qualification is like, I taught myself a lot about debates and philosophy and the Bible. And like, I used to be a fucking MAGA. I used to be a conservative evangelical prick. Like, I hate to say it, but think about how many people out here, like, that is their fucking resume, y'all. That is what they think makes them the fucking bee's knees. Was 3 years ago, they were dumb as dog shit and vilely weaponized with bigotry. Now I'm happy they've seen the fucking light. I'm happy they realized they were sitting on some bullshit and now they're trying to get on the right side of history. But leaders, that does not make them. They're literally not qualified. But since they've captured the motherfucking movement, they're the only motherfuckers that get any oxygen. They're the only motherfuckers that get any opportunity. And then they get to like steer who they put on next or don't put on. And so then it's like they just want more of the same. And then and I hate to say it, the audience becomes captured by the same thing. So there's a movement, your movement being captured, but then there's audience capture, right? And so part of the audience capture is a lot of the audience is not really that experienced. A lot of the audience is new to school when it comes to walking outside the cult, to keep it real. And so then there's a certain way in which the audience also feeds off of that sort of amateurism because it feels kind of good to stay there. It feels kind of good to just be like, oh, well, who's the new latest and greatest content creator that is like tearing down the same old apologetics and the same old Christo-fascist bullshit? And rather than realizing like, oh, like my interests should mature and evolve, it's like, no, well, now there's like a new dopamine rush because there's like some new content creator who really is doing the same old shit. So whatever. But that's the type of thing that I'm really like getting frustrated with. And so when I say white people don't really trust white people, what I mean is that they don't trust that if we truly decentered white people, that if we truly decided that whiteness doesn't get to lead, white people don't get to say how we do this. They don't get to decide. You don't get to be the deciders. You don't get to preside over everything. You don't get to pick and choose who's going to speak up and when they speak and what tone they're going to use. When we say you no longer get to be in power, I don't give a fuck who you think isn't polite because I didn't ask you. I don't give a fuck what you think of my tone of voice because I didn't ask you. I don't give a fuck what you think of the way I'm dressed because I didn't ask you. When we really talk to y'all like that, y'all are out. Y'all are out. You no longer want to talk about diversity. You no longer want to talk about inclusivity. You don't know, y'all don't want, nope. You go running for the fucking hills. Running for the fucking hills. And so what it reveals is you're not truly invested in making the world a better place for everybody unless it happens on your terms. Unless it happens in a way you're comfortable with. So for some reason, white people continue to the death of them to prioritize the comfort. The comfort, that's what all that whitesome and delightsome civility politics is about. It is about prioritizing the comfort of the white people because you don't believe that they will do the right thing if you don't. If you say to them, look, I'm sorry, but the real shit is, yeah, it's been motherfucking terrible to not be a fucking white person. And yeah, a lot of white people are fucking poor, but even a lot of poor white people, y'all been moving in all types of fucked up, funky ass ways, and you have no idea what the fuck it's really been like. And yeah, people are fucking pissed at you. And no, not everybody's ready to forgive you. Not everybody on the left is ready. And no, there's no space for that Jesus bullshit over here. Sorry, we don't do that. That's a fucking fairy tale. Sorry, we're not. Nope, you don't get to come over here with your liberal Jesus nonsense. Y'all tell us when we talk like that, y'all tell us we're going too far, we're too radical, we're too combative, we're way too woke, and then you threaten us. You literally threaten us. You tell us they're never going to be on your side. They're never going to listen to you. Don't you want a big tent? Don't you want a big umbrella? Don't you want to win? That's how they. Don't you want to win? That's a fucking threat. Yeah, I want to win. And you know why I should win? Because I'm right. Do you know why I should win? Because I'm fucking right. I'm right about history. I'm right about the moment in which we find ourselves. I have moral fucking clarity, and I'm spitting the motherfucking truth. When I say trans rights are human rights and everybody should be able to play sports, period, end of story. That's right. That is the correct answer to the motherfucking question. So what y'all need to do is turn to them and say, yeah, that's the correct answer. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, we're going to do trans rights or human rights, and we're going to do everybody plays sports, period, end of story. You don't think they will do it. That's what I'm talking about. You don't trust that deep down inside, they really do want these things. So part of what it is it's now asked the question, why don't white people trust other white people? Now that is the really great question. Why don't white people trust other white people? For me, from a critical lens, especially as a non-white person, it looks like it's because there's a deep recognition at some level that there is some perniciousness inherent in solidarity with whiteness that you genuinely believe has to be protected to coax good behavior out of most white people. You literally believe you have to like massage them and like hold their hands and like baby step them into doing the right thing. And that if you don't, they will check out. Because at some level, it's like you pretty much are recognizing white people really kind of do like only really want to fucking get down if they can decide how we get down.
The piece goes on to talk about farm laborers and field workers' rights movements and how they were initially funded based very much on dues from participants, from folks who are being impacted. But then philanthropic organizations come in with grants and then they form agreements. They act like they're allies initially, but then that money starts to drive the narrative. It starts to shape the organization. The organizers within the movement are afraid to speak out in a way, to move in a way that threatens that funding, that displeases the philanthropists. The money from these philanthropic organizations funds ad campaigns. It changes the narrative. It hires their people and puts them in positions to influence the movement.
Right. Now think about our atheist situation. Start to ask yourself, who sponsors these channels? When they do events, who organizes them? Who are the sponsors? Who has a table? Who has a presence there? Who are the speakers? How did they find the speakers? Who got to decide who the speakers are going to be? Why these speakers? Why not these other speakers? And then what does that do about what's allowed to be said? And here's where you have to understand how easy tokenization can be misused. Those of you that watch Hot Program understand that me and my co-host, my one black friend, we do differ on the way we would approach things. And I've been trying to draw a further distinction recently on that show, which is that let's just call the difference in our approaches. His is what you might call the friendly, soft, atheist approach, and mine is more like, fuck that, that's sitting on some bullshit approach. What I'm trying to get people to understand is essentially his approach has won out. And it's because of, again, the way our social environments are structured and the way they reward certain types of behavior and punish others, or recognize certain contributions but not others, or police certain behaviors but not others. And so one of the things I've said is I don't really know how effective a more direct approach like mine would be, because nobody takes it. And because it's such a rare approach, I genuinely mean that. I don't know how most of society would react to it. I actually think it'd be really effective, to be honest. That's my suspicion. My suspicion it would be far more effective than being kind about it. My suspicion is that part of what we're missing is the power and the significance of negative feedback. Negative feedback plays a really important role in society and in relationships, in groups, right? Like, we all know it's great to get with a lover or a loved one and you're partying and you're romancing and dancing and whining and dining and making love, and it's great. And we all also know what it's like to have that very serious sit down, like, we got to talk and shit's bad. Right? And hopefully when shit's bad, we like work through it and try to get back to whining and dining and dancing and romancing. But we know sometimes we got to have that real serious sit down because shit's bad. And that a relationship won't be functional if we don't do that. But for some reason, like, when it comes to a lot of this social shit, like, we miss that. So my point is, it's not just about the individual approaches and the individual differences. It's about the environment in which those individual approaches take place, right? So go back to our thing about being movement captured. When we have these events and we prioritize the whitesome and delightsome and the friendly atheist and the real nice guys and the people who love to have the intellectual debates and the people who want to compromise and the liberal Christians and the meet you in the middle and all that type of stuff, when that's 95% of the goddamn content and the people who are platformed and the people who are focused on, yeah, you might have a radical person like me. You might have a motherfucking Uncle Bobby. You might have a fucking Sumami there. Right? But it's so easy then to take that person and, one, say, oh, look how diverse and representative we are because we included them. But two, it's also to basically dismiss them as like the wild one or the confrontational one, or the hardcore one, or whatever it is. In other words, as a deviance, not necessarily because they're doing something wrong, but because they're statistically deviant, right? That's something you teach students about. There's a lot of approaches to deviance. There's something deviant moralistically that tends to be absolutist. There's something deviant because it's against the law. Again, that's not everything that is illegal is immoral, right? Is something considered, right? And so there's statistical deviance, right? Something being deviant just because it's unusual or it's uncommon. So who is funding these events and who gets platformed and who the speakers are? And that allows them all to set the tone and to control the environment and to set the temperature in the room. And so if they set the temperature in the room to less than hot, then we ain't cooking. If y'all couldn't follow that, I'm sorry. Just rewind it. You'll get it next time.
That is movement capture. So jumping down in the article quite a bit and jumping forward to the BLM movement. Once again, big philanthropy is acting in ways that undermine racial movements for justice. Instead of answering the call of some of the most marginalized citizens in our society, many in philanthropy have cozied up to the corporations that have made life miserable for so many in the first place. For example, they have gaslighted us with this new social bond initiative underwritten by Wells Fargo Securities. They've used marginalized citizens in our society, many in philanthropy have cozied up to the corporations that have made life miserable for so many in the first place.
Many have cozied up to the corporations that made life miserable in the first place. Now, just take the word corporations out and insert something else. Many have cozied up to the same conservative right wing that made shit miserable in the first place. Many have cozied up to the same fucking religious fascism. Many have cozied up to the same debate bro bullshit. Many have cozied up to fucking apologist. Many have cozied up to fucking Jubilee or Joe Rogan or Piers fucking Morgan, right? It's the same fucking thing. It's the same fucking thing. And like we've seen in our community, many have cozied up to bigots and they've cozied up to fucking predators and they've cozied up to fucking assholes and they've cozied up to to bad people over and over and over again. And to be honest, it's something poor Kyle. Poor Kyle. We love us some Kyle around here, but she is relatively new. And I told her, like, Kyle, like, we go through some shit like this pretty much once or twice a year where some bullshit goes down and we got to fucking deal with some asshole. But it's like very predictable. It literally happens to us about once or twice a year. And I don't think she realized I was spitting facts. I wasn't being dramatic. I was trying to warn you.
For example, they have gaslighted us with this new social bond initiative underwritten by Wells Fargo Securities. They've used valuable political capital to advocate for corporate accountability instead of more direct and effective actions like the authors here argue defunding the police. The tension between foundation leaders and abolition-centered organizations, including those engaged in the invest-divest movement toward a more fully just and caring world, points to a central problem in philanthropy. Many funders want to fund movement building, but do not actually know what that entails. Deep investments in movement building would require funders to engage deeply in the history of social movements, to shift how they evaluate success, and to adopt longer time horizons.
Woo! And see, that's the same thing we don't do around here. Listen to it again.
To fund movement building, but do not actually know what that entails.
So there's a lot of people, right? They want to get involved in movement building. That's what they want to fund. That's what they want to support with their content. But guess what? They don't have any experience in movement building. Guess what? You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, you got to take this shit real. I consider myself very lucky. You know, it is my channel. I should talk about myself more on my own goddamn channel. But I consider myself very fortunate because I grew up in politics. Not many people can say that, especially not many black kids. But that's the reality. I grew up at the table and in the streets working on very important campaigns, and I got to lead campaigns as a young person. I literally know what it's like to write a fucking plan for how to run a city. Like, for real. And that's an awesome experience in addition to, my own fucking political experience doing my own campaigns and shit. And I know what it's like to be a community organizer. That was literally my job. And so I have that experience, and I did, go to Penn State, and I've started teaching at a very early age and taught sociology of race and anthropology and taught people how to facilitate dialogues about difficult topics. It was my job not to just facilitate those conversations, but to train other people in how to facilitate those conversations, okay? Then most of y'all know I got a dual PhD and I'm a college professor. So, when I speak to things, like, I do feel really fortunate that I can speak to them from the lived experience. And I talk about being the only black kid in all white schools, or going to predominantly white institutions and working at predominantly white institutions, or being the only black person in graduate school. That is speaking from real lived experience. But I also have the academic expertise. Okay, like, I studied these things with world-class scholars and researchers, and now I have the experience also of teaching these things. So I recognize that that's not going to be everybody's story, but I also recognize it makes a tremendous fucking difference in a person's perspective. And I feel for people who do not have access to either the lived experience or the formal education or the professional development and all of those type of things. I really do. But I think we have to be critical about who we're going to follow and who we're going to consider a leader, and who which organizations we're going to support, and what we think it means to be qualified to lead an organization or to lead a movement, or even just to have an influential platform. Like, and that's so much of where content like this for me comes from. Like, she's great. She's fucking great. Me and the Park Rose permaculture lady, we have fun, very nuanced disagreements, and I go, I caught you doing this thing subtly, and we're smoking weed, drinking coffee, and she's like, oh, you said this thing and you didn't even realize that was you being a fucking capitalist prick. And I'm like, oh, you got me. Right? You know what I mean? Like her and I, like, we trade barbs, like it's inside baseball. It's like we're on the same team. There's a lot of respect. There's a lot of fucking, like, I don't think she's a fuckface. I don't think she's unqualified. She's fucking awesome. And yeah, we just disagree about some of the nuances, and that's how we get better, is helping each other. Like, I'm sure she'd be all up in my shit, and I'd be like, yep, you got me. No notes, you are correct. I fucked that all the way up, because I'm sure I do all the time. And that's fine. But there are other people who I'm like, wow, like, that thing you said, or that thing you say all the time, even though I think most of your content is great and I'm really happy you're making it, like, there's just some glaring deficiencies, right? And sometimes, yeah, that's just the reality of a person kind of being self-made, self-taught, and then finding themselves with kind of an outsized influence. And that's a pretty awesome thing in the world we live in, but it's something we got to be careful about, especially for those of us that are fighting for things that really, really matter.
Deep investments in movement building would require funders to engage deeply in the history of social movements.
Engage deeply in the history of social movements. Remember, I wanted to revisit her list here. Deeply understand the history of social movements. Motherfuckers out here don't do that. They do not deeply study the history of social movements. Again, not even to the level of, like, a basic undergraduate course in these things.
To shift how they evaluate success and to adopt.
To shift how they evaluate success. Again, who gets to determine what the goals are? Because if the goals are clicks and likes and asses and seats and selling tickets and selling merchandise, then there may be some other things that get pushed to the side because they're not as important as those metrics of success. But if the measure of success was truly a diverse community, not just of bodies and demographics, but of thoughts, of means of expression, what would that look like? What would it look like if the safety of particularly marginalized groups was considered the metric of success? How are we doing on that one? What about if actually making measurable progress such that we are helping support people that are leaving behind religious trauma? And we can actually show we are doing things that are helping people leave cults and recover from religious trauma. What if it was actually building community such that people had not a big YouTube following, but at least a small group of friends, people they could really, really fucking turn to if life fucking lifed? How many people are having that versus, oh, I show up to a chat, I do some super chats, I go to a conference a couple times a year? I'm just saying, y'all, it matters what the measures of success are. And if there's only one group of people who ever gets acknowledged, who's ever in positions of leaders, whoever gets to be considered the board and the people who are the keynote speakers and the ones we feature on the big fundraisers and all that shit, then they're the ones who get to determine what the measure of success is. And what if we have motherfucking different ideas about what success looks like?
Longer time horizons. If funders want to
and thinking about the longer term motherfucking horizons. We are not doing these things. And so now you have to put those two things together. Now we're dealing with movement capture and a complete lack of perspective with which to resist movement capture. We have all of the problem and none of the solution.
decrease the degree of movement capture in the present moment, they must transform internal and external grant-making processes. In particular, foundations need to look internally to foundation processes that have undermined movements. Externally, funders need to do more and be much better at trusting the vision of organizers from the communities that are affected by the issue. While I agree,
trusting the organizers from the communities that are affected. Do we do that? Hell to the no. To the no, not never, not once, not even a single time. Nope.
agree with all of that. And I appreciate that the authors here understand the utility of being funded by philanthropic groups. And while I appreciate and acknowledge my own bias because I come from an anti-capitalist perspective, I think philanthropy is a scam. I think the super rich need to be taxed out of existence. And while I have been for many months...
I love it. That's what we need, gang. Told you this is my dog right here. I don't give a fuck what we disagree about. We agree about that right there. Philanthropy is bullshit. Even secular philanthropy is fucking bullshit. The rich need to be taxed out of existence.
Sounding the alarm about dark money influencing not only our elected officials, we've got to overturn Citizens United. A majority of Americans want it overturned, by the way. Also, all of the dark money that is funneling into new media. Was that new media originally an organic outgrowth, wanting true social change? How much has dark money, big money, establishment money come in and captured that movement?
All right, so many of you will remember, for instance, when Israel and Palestine got back into their thing, their I don't know what to call it. I want to just call it their generationally inherited conflict. People immediately noticed that certain content creators on the left were a little bit too enthusiastic with that Israel has a right to defend itself narrative and the both sidesing and the blase and the glavinoids. And then what do you know? It would turn out later, right, that, you know, them and the Dems and AIPAC were all in this weird little arrangement and they're paying these content creators. And sure enough, those content creators are making sure they're not too pro-Palestine, right? And we saw that. So and as you might imagine, have I been able to completely avoid those people? Probably not, because they're still pop up on my shit from time to time, but I absolutely unsubscribed and hit YouTube with the don't recommend this channel. I only tend to watch something if that pops up on my feed and I don't have any other way. I don't see any other way to get that story. But and it's been the same thing with a lot of these atheist channels. It's like they just pop up on my feed and I'm like, unsubscribe, because I realize it's the same shit. They are controlled opposition. And yes, a lot of them are atheists and they're bold and they will make anti-conservative content and anti-Christian content. But there's always limits and bounds to what they really say. And I do think it's because, again, they want to be palatable to the opposition. Most of them center that. That's another thing that's super weird about the whole thing, right? It's like they're always talking to their imagined Christian audience rather than the secular audience in front of them. And I think that says a lot. If you ask yourself, why do I spend so much time criticizing liberals? Why do I spend so much time talking about white liberals? Why do I spend so much time criticizing people on the left? Why do I spend so much time criticizing atheists? Because that's who fucking watches me. Not a fucking idiot. I talk way more about black shit if my audience was primarily black. It's not. I know who my audience is. It's mostly white liberals. So I try to talk to shit that, one, I feel reaches them, like, yo, I feel like they fucks with me and I really appreciate that. I feel like that's awesome. Like that makes me feel great. That feels like that people like feel like, yo, I could listen to this dude and he's gonna say some real shit. And then I feel like because people fucks with me, I can challenge them. I can really, what the fuck is the point of doing all the things I mentioned fucking earlier if I'm not gonna contribute to the world and use all that lived experience and resources to help people see shit more clearly. So that's the thing. But would it be great if fucking Christians watched me and my tone didn't turn them off and they could like stomach what I was saying, and then they were just like, damn, he was right, and Christianity's sitting on some bullshit, I better leave it alone? That'd be awesome. But unfortunately, I don't really think that is the main thing, or that happens very frequently. It's mostly the homies that tune in and are trying to figure out what's up, right? So it is weird to me that these people that are supposed to be such strident fucking secular humanists or whatever the fuck, their content is just completely brain rotted, focused on Christo-fascist. At some point, we're just like, why? Like why? Like, to me, like, try to have influence with the people you actually have influence with. But also, to me, it says something about, again, them being part of a captured movement. They would rather make marketable content that helps them grow in the algorithm and is profitable, largely because, again, it centers the right wing. It's about Trump or fascist or this MAGA asshole or that MAGA asshole or fucking Christians, this big name fucking apologist or that big name apologist, or this dumbass argument we've heard a million times or that dumbass argument we've heard a million times. And so not only is that profitable to the algorithm, but it's comforting to their audience. It says, you already know how this goes, way to show up, hit that super chat, hit that subscribe, hit that like, and let's all go about our business. and they don't have to challenge their audience. Why? Because they're afraid, again, if they actually challenge their audience wouldn't fucking be up for it. That's, again, back to that title, white people don't trust white people. The thing I can say about y'all is I fucks with y'all because I tell y'all how I really feel all the time, and y'all right back here in the goddamn next stream. Them some motherfuckers that's really about it. They know what it's about. And when I come on here and I'm like, look, the white shit is fucking killing me. White people, y'all tripping. Y'all doing some crazy shit. Y'all don't take it personally. Y'all are like, I know he's speaking to the bigger fucking problem of how a lot of us move. It is, he's not calling us out because he fucking hates white people and he's racist. He's speaking to how our demographic sometimes holds up the fucking progress with our bullshit. And yeah, if he's on point, then it's helpful. And if he's not talking about me, then he ain't fucking talking about me. What the fuck? Ain't nothing to be worried. So y'all right back here with it. That's how we know y'all are down. But why can't we have this conversation on MSNBC? You see what I'm saying? Why isn't this the tone on CNN? Why can't we keep it this real at scale, right? At scale. Like that's the problem. And for me, I'm not trying to bullshit. I'm trying to really identify it. What I've identified is part of it is doubt. Part of it is like, and I've experienced it. Let me talk about what I've experienced. I want to switch the view here for us. I'd like to take. I want to talk about Christian. I hit the wrong button. I want to talk about Christian nihilism, and it's this thing you guys hear it, right? When somebody says, if there is no God, what's wrong with rape? Or, pizza sleeps fast under the West, therefore the Mudge. Oh, you don't believe in God, so why do I need to be logical? You know what I mean? Like it's this, and in a sense, we take that seriously. We basically realize that there are certain people who like, Kyle always says how we win matters. There are certain people who only want to win their way, and they only want to win if they get to be the hero. And it says a lot. And so it really does feel like this doubt, like this awareness that like if I tell these people, for instance, Christianity is not true, and now you need to support LGBTQ rights just because it's simply the right thing to do, that they're not up for that. Like they're only up for being good if they can say they're doing it for Jesus. And if you say they can't say they're doing it for Jesus, then they don't want to do it anymore. And then they're not going to help you. So you better go along with it, right? And that's how the movement gets captured. And we're going to come to that. So we're about to jump into the second half of this, but let's keep this going so we can wrap up part one.
This is one of the reasons I keep saying we need a code of ethics for creators online. We need disclosure. And we all have to get a lot more savvy, a lot more hyper aware about the way that money captures movements, captures media, captures politicians, in order to prevent social change, to make sure that the system is maintained so that they maintain their power. Who are we trusting and watching and listening to right now that the super rich are using to create controlled opposition?
And remember, it's not the super rich necessarily that are doing it, but who has influence, who has power, who has control, who is driving, who has the keys. All right, gang, before we jump into part two, speaking of disclosures, capitalism. I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's broadcast. Us. That's right, motherfuckers. This shit right here is real, independent, secular media. We have no sponsors, no advertisers, and we sure as hell don't have billionaire backers. We don't think billionaires should exist, so they don't call, and even if they did, we wouldn't answer. Let's keep it all the way real. We are not popular. Conservatives don't like us because we tell the truth. Liberals don't like us because we tell the truth. Believers don't like us because we tell the truth. And honestly, even most atheists don't like us because we tell the truth. So if you want to support a channel that's actually independent, not corporate branded, not billionaire funded, not algorithm approved, you can do it completely for free. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, share the content far and wide. Put other creators on to what we do. Tell them to check out the channel, encourage them to collaborate, or maybe even debate live with the community. And if you want to help keep the lights on or dream with us about a future where we can do this full time, you can drop a few ducats through Ko-Fi or become a member. Most importantly, stay connected with the movement. Join our Discord and pull up to our live headquarters inside Work Adventure. All those links are in the description. This isn't passive entertainment. This is a takeover. We are taking over the internet. We are fucking out here, y'all. We have been taking over the internet for a long goddamn time. And you know, the movement is fucking on, y'all. I appreciate every single one of y'all. And we didn't do a party. We need to do a party because we did reach 1,200 subscribers. And that may not sound like a lot to y'all. We may have nearly that many videos uploaded on the damn channel. But I fucking appreciate every one of y'all. I think the content we make is fucking hard. It's just real, it's raw, it's just me. It's not algorithm friendly in terms of the way it is produced or the content. So yeah, I just appreciate y'all. Let's keep it rolling. Please do like, sub, share, do all that good stuff. But more importantly, thanks to everybody that's here. I'm really, really grateful. And special thanks to all y'all who have been around for years. I know my man AR. We got mat work to do, baby. I can't wait till you get into this tiled AR. We can take map customization to the next level. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. We've been taking over the internet for a long time, and the party won't stop. All right, here we go.
I just had a little bit of a mentee bee about this on Blue Sky. And no, it's not really a mentee bee. It's just a lot. It's heavy stuff. I was texting with one of my friends from Derby, who also was previously an evangelical. There's a lot of people in roller derby who come to that community as part of their deconstruction.
Okay, let me turn this up a little bit. Shout outs to everybody involved in motherfucking roller derby. That is my shit. For those of you that don't know, I am a fucking professional wrestling fan. Go ahead, say your little jokes. Don't care. You know why I don't care? Because wrestling's fun as shit. You know what I get to do at night? Late at night when I'm in bed by myself and I just want to feel peace and happiness? I get to watch pro wrestling. And this shit is fucking fun, okay? It's fun, all right? Just deal with it. Get over yourself. But roller derby is like right there. Roller derby and pro wrestling, I feel they're like kindred spirits. Roller derby and wrestling are not just in the same family. They're like me in OG Roddy. They are in the same family, but they fucks with each other. They are homies. They are friends. They are first cousins, but they hang out like that. They thick, okay? They in here. You know what I'm saying? You in Florida, you go to Universal Studios, you like, I'ma just roll up to the roller derby. Oh yeah, and then we popping out, grab the bags, we going across the street to the goddamn pro wrestling. Okay, we like this, like tight. Yeah, y'all could take me to some motherfucking roller derby anytime, any place, that shit. That's some good entertainment, some good sports, some good structured, organized violence, some good spectacle. Oh, I love it.
Process. We could talk about whether or not they're swapping one cult for another.
Yeah,
whatever.
we don't have to talk about
that's
that.
an
No,
entire
no,
other
that's
rabbit
not. Yeah,
hole.
yeah.
But I was
yeah.
telling them that
Talk about that
this
some other
week
time.
I've really discovered how many of the bands, Christian bands, that were so incredibly important to me in the late 90s and early aughts. And then I didn't know what happened to them. I had no idea what happened to them because I was going through my own deconstruction journey and I stopped listening to them. But they were likewise.
Y'all, all right. Confession time. I have to tell y'all something. It's gonna sound weird, but some of y'all will understand. Oh God, I don't know how to say this. Sometimes listening to religious music is like my guilty pleasure. Sometimes I listen to that shit like this, like a song will just get put on my mind, or I'll hear some shit, and I'll be like, oh, like I heard a song the other day in the fucking post office, and I was so mad that they were playing fucking all this religious ass holiday music in the fucking post office. Yo, but the black lady that was working behind the counter, y'all, she was fucking working it. Like, I didn't want to hear all that motherfucking Jesus music, but that bitch knew the hits. That bitch knew the hits. She knew the hits. Everybody in the fucking post office was tapping their feet and bouncing along and singing and shit. I was like, this bitch got us here. Acting the fool. It was so weird, but so New Jersey. It was just so New Jersey. But yeah, that's my guilty pleasure. Like, I don't care. Like, Dirty Mag, nah, that ain't it. I don't give a fuck if people know about that shit. I'll be listening to that Christian music like, oh God, I hope nobody sees it. I hope nobody sees me. I'll put on this Jesus music. Oh God.
Deconstructing. In my last video, a bunch of people tagged Derek Webb from Caedmon's Call, and he commented, I told him I'm trying not to fangirl really hard. He commented, like, y'all should check out my latest album, and so I did. I didn't know that he was still making music. Caedmon's Call song This World was... there is
I know
no
it's
way.
gross. I know it's gross. Yo, I want to do videos sometimes where I play the music and then break down how fucked up it actually is. Like drums and deconstruction. Like, just play a song and then be like, all right, now let me explain to you why this song is so fucking monstrous. It's just the cultiest shit. But look, y'all, y'all are not being sensitive. I was raised in a goddamn cult, all right? Have some goddamn empathy or something. I don't know. I need an excuse. Help. It's hot in here. I'm sweating. I'm getting nervous. Y'all making me uncomfortable.
To adequately state how important that song was for me, and to find out that he's making like incredibly affirming music, not just for his trans kid, but also for the whole queer community. I realized how many of those songs that were so important to me when I was kind of like a legalistic asshole in my late teens and early 20s. Those songs from artists like Jars of Clay and Jennifer Knapp and Caedmon's Call, and obviously Rich Mullins and others, but how many of those artists were communicating things in their music that were so profoundly different than what we were hearing from the pulpit or what we were hearing from, whether it's like your InterVarsity or your RUF or your Campus Crusade, whatever organization you were involved with. I'm having a little bit of an ongoing existential crisis about this, because I feel like, wow, did I throw the baby out with the bathwater a little bit?
All right, so this is where we get into here, right? Okay, so this comment is, somehow the Christian artist I loved the most ended up mostly deconstructing. The only one that truly broke my heart was Skillet, but I replaced them with 9 Inch Nails. I actually think that is. Otherwise, I'm so glad. Whatever. All right, so this one to me was a little bit of fun, and like I said, I kind of think of it as like more like a playful thing with her, because I do respect her and think she's totally based. But this thing, right? And I recognize it too, because I'm a church drummer. I have deep knowledge and affinity for Christian music and the entire spectrum, right? Because I've done the Black church gospel thing. That was literally my introduction to drums. I fell in love with the drums in my grandfather's Black Pentecostal church with the gospel chops and all that good stuff, playing a cowbell and my first little drum sets. Grew up in a very actually diverse non-denominational church, played in all white churches with like the contemporary Christian CCM type stuff, and played in Black churches. So like just the whole spectrum, and grew up playing in my school, which was Catholic, and so we actually had drums and played at Catholic masses, which is very, very weird. But I not only know the Catholic canon, I can play drums to most of it. All right. So I get that. But what ends up happening for me that we have to be very careful about is like not opening the door to this like liberal Christianity. And I think that while this is fun to like reminisce on Christian bands and especially Christian artists that have like deconstructed and like what that says about Christian music and like the Christian industry, it does speak to a certain romanticization again of liberal Christianity. And I think it's really important. And it's not just that like I don't like Christianity or something like that. I think it's really important that when you're thinking about what a true future looks like that includes everybody, it has to have certain standards, right? And there has to have like base standards of humanity. And one of those, to me, has to be honesty. Honesty has to be non-negotiable. And so I don't think you can ever truly build like an equitable or movement that promotes true humanness without insisting on the truth. So it has to be secular because no non-secular sort of claims can sort of meet the burden of inclusion in a public movement. And then the other thing is the parity. Like we all have to be operating from a place of equalness. And so when you start letting some people wrinkle in their privileged narratives in cultural fairy tales, that's not really a good starting point, because then the movement and its solidarity and its cohesiveness becomes in jeopardy based on religious conflict. And that's why I think it's actually important to use that religious demarcation as a barrier to entry. And I know that that's something like people don't really like want to hear. And this isn't necessarily a stream about that, although it kind of is. But basically, and I'll come back and talk more about it, but like in other streams or something. But basically, I do think that like that's kind of what I mean about not trusting people. Like I should not have to even pretend that I think those Christian dogmas are even reasonable ideas to hold. And you being a decent human being should not be contingent on that. Like I should just be able to tell you like, sorry, humans evolved. That is literally the most well-supported theory in the history of science. We were not created, we evolved. You're just going to have to deal with that being the actual origin of our species. And also, like, the dogma in the Bible is quite monstrous. I don't know why you people worship a being that plans to send most of humanity to hell, but I really do think that's gross. And snakes don't talk, virgins don't get pregnant. Y'all know the list, right? And yeah, like, I should be able to say that to you. And then I should also be able to say, and now we're going to go to the poll together and vote for equal rights for women and for LGBTQ people. And Black lives do matter. And you're going to become an avowed anti-racist now. And also we're going to just oppose genocides, all of them, and also we don't elect pedophiles ever, and we put them in prison, all of them, yes, including that one, that the famous the one that's the president now. Yeah, we have to all put him. Like, y'all see what I'm saying? I got news for y'all. If any of y'all just really fell out of your chair because you think I'm some like hair on fire radical lefty, check your humanity in the mirror, please, before you go to bed, because I don't know, it's like none of that should be radical. That those should be considered conservative. That should just be like basic human decency 101. That shouldn't even say anything about your politics. That should just be like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Well, now let's talk about economic policy, right? Like, now let's get into something that might actually be a meaningful distinction between what it means to be liberal and conservative. But like that basic human right shit should be like non-negotiable for everybody. But for some reason, it's like people genuinely do not think that if you tell people we are not fucking around with this Jesus nonsense anymore, that they will still sign up to be good human beings. That's fucked up.
Here, I went back and re-listened to Caedmon's Call's song "This World," and like how much of it really is far more of a critique of the evangelical church than it is of like secular worldly culture. How appropriate that song is now when you look at MAGA Christianity. That song absolutely is a critique of American evangelical culture. And when I was texting with my friend about this earlier, I was like, these are bands that it was sort of inevitable that they were never going to be embraced by the contemporary Christian music scene. They were always going to be booted by the industry because they were very real, very human, and they were not commercial in the same way that the CCM industry needed their bands to be. Because at the end of the day, right, it's still a profit-driven machine. The contemporary Christian music industry it's not really about spreading the gospel or helping people become more Christ-like or what have you. It's about money. It's like everything in late stage capitalism. It's about money.
Yeah. So the thing we don't talk about these things enough. I'm all about the universal healthcare, like the full blown type. I'm actually about crazy universal healthcare, like world class, like the Saudi shit where they fly you all over the fucking world to like the best specialists with like your caretakers and like pay you and all. Like, y'all don't know, my shit be radical, dog. And ban millionaires, and also universal basic income. And y'all think my universal basic income is like 30 grand. Try like 90 to 100. Try 90 to 100. When y'all hear about the Jay Bundy economy, y'all don't know. It's radical forced redistribution of the wealth. But the good news is everybody get paid. Everybody get paid. And when motherfuckers profit over the wealth cap, once again, everybody get paid. Everybody get paid. And so the capitalists, they just keep doing their fucking thing because they just trying to create a little bit of excess here, and there. But every time they do it, the shit just gets fucking radically redistributed. And they don't know. We gave them a gold watch already. I don't know what the problem is. People don't understand though. Most people will literally make way more money. So yeah, I'm all about that shit. But also the prison industrial complex, no more private prisons. That should not exist, and prisons should not be profitable. Also, we increase the standard of living in prisons. Prisons need to actually be rehabilitative, and they need to have a high quality of life. That is how you integrate people back into society. And also, it's still a fucking punishment because you lose your freedom and you lose all that shit. But it disincentivizes people for putting people there because it's very, very expensive and it's not fucking torture, so it's not really cruel.
Fucking copy pasta of Hillsong, then the industry really doesn't want you. If your music,
but also abolish the prison altogether. Who gives a fuck? Like I gotta really need to remove you. You got to be removed from the popular. I don't know if I'm telling y'all I don't know. I'm one of them people who kind of thinks after a certain level, like a certain size of city, you got to do something. But mostly, most of what we do with prisons, nah, it's not. That doesn't really help.
isn't predictable, palatable to conservative pastors, to evangelical America, then really the industry is not going to have a place for you. And also, I think a lot of these musicians who were striving to be really authentic, they didn't want to stay in that sphere because they wanted to talk about their doubts. They wanted to talk about all of the hard things that an industry pushing Jesus is my boyfriend music was not going to want them to discuss. Like, go back and listen to Jar's album, The 11th Hour, and tell me how none of that music, none of that album was in any way what the contemporary Christian music scene was wanting to push or promote. It's not commercial. It doesn't have marketability. I think it's one of the best albums I've ever listened to.
So I find this a really interesting conversation, and I find it like very seductive to a certain extent. But it also feeds almost into like the Christian persecution thing, where it's like, oh, they have such a hard time for this, but they also have like a huge market for that because again, there's always got to be like the edgy space for like, you know, the Christians that are going through how hard it is to be a Christian or whatever. But it's also, again, a commentary on understanding where the real force of Christians are, especially politically and economically, right? It's like this recognition that like, oh, if you're actually going against the norm or going against the sort of rigid, traditional evangelical messaging, then you're not going to be promoted in Christian music. And that's not just the case in CCM, that's very much this case in gospel music when you just look, it's like across the religious music industry, right? And you do have to go like independent or like way outside to do something like that. But we need to recognize that that same market force applies politically and socially. And that is the problem with trying to whitewash Christianity. That shit is not marketable because, again, the meta and the power and the money is always going to be behind the far-right Christo-fascism. And since the shit is bullshit and it's not true, it's very difficult to make something so anti-human and divorced from reality the raison d'etre, the MO of people focused on rationality and humanity. But since, again, I feel our movement has been captured, and this is where it becomes difficult for me, because what I'm struggling with more and more is the feeling that white liberals are themselves the capturers of our movements. Because, again, it's like Uncle Bobby says about Hitler. He says, you know what, Hitler doesn't bother me. Not that it doesn't bother him, but he says Hitler doesn't bother me because, you know, one racist asshole spouting anti-Semitism in his bedroom does not a Holocaust make, right? It takes a country to establish that. It takes you know, people electing that, putting that person in power, and then it takes the rest of the world tolerating it, right, and letting it all get so out of hand right before what needed to be done was done. And that is what I see happening across the board. White liberals, to their credit, is y'all are thriving. Like there's just, y'all are fucking everywhere. Y'all just still America. Y'all still run this bitch. And with the far right being so extreme and so vile, right? It has been uniquely repulsive to like any just halfway decent people, including any halfway decent white people. So now, more than ever before, there are tons and tons of white people who their identity is literally like no, like I am not conservative or I am not Christian or like right, and it's like and it's like y'all are like woo yeah baby, like you know what I'm saying? And on some level, y'all, for a second, because we getting critical, but for a second, let's just show it love, because it is kind of fly. I ain't even gonna hold you. I am enjoying the shift in the fucking Overton window. I'm enjoying the I've had it kind of moment of not just those ladies, but just everybody kind of speaking up and everybody getting down with resistance and all of it. Like it's so like, go ahead, y'all, like get fly with it. You know what I mean? Like real talk. Like we do need to encourage motherfuckers to just keep at it. Like you're doing the right thing. Keep going. Oh man, that was fun. All right, but you know, but there's still risk involved, right? Because now y'all are all here, right? Now y'all are welcome. Y'all are all here now, though, right? And so now that y'all are all here, it's like y'all are like, oh well, you know, how are we gonna do things, right? And so there's this temptation to just do things the way you've always done them. And that's what I mean when I say that sometimes the movement capture is real difficult to deal with. It's real difficult to stop, because sometimes it's a combination of things. It's like this unholy alliance between, yes, these malicious bad actors who definitely want to come in and capture the movement and take it over to ensure that it doesn't meet these broader goals. But then a lot of it is just, now there's a lot of people who are occupying this space now, so they have the weight of their numbers. They have the weight of, like, let me give you an example. Let's just say, think about the spectrum of people on YouTube, and let's just say there's like some badass fucking super conscious like woke ass black motherfuckers and like some you know, kind of milk toasty, kind of, you know, more agreeable type folk, right? And then, you know, there's like some, you know, some like cool white liberal type people, and then there's some, you know, really out there radical base type white liberal people. Who you think is gonna grow the most on this platform? If you guess the agreeable, friendly, white liberal person, ding, 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 congratulations, you are correct. And then like, who's mostly watching that person, right? So like, if, you know, black radical motherfuckers show up and like, yo, here's how you fight fucking Christo-fascism. So like, we're radical black motherfuckers educated in the history of fucking resistance and resistance movements and how to deconstruct and devour colonialism and how to fight the power and also how to think long term. And we have all the shit that you're supposed to fucking do, but nobody fucking listens to us. And a bunch of white liberals show up and they're like, yeah, I think we should be really nice and like welcome the other side with open arms. And, you know, like, maybe they just don't understand how hurtful what they're doing is. Why don't we just like, let's have conversations with them? You know, maybe not even call them debates. Let's just call them conversations and let's just talk it out. Let's just talk. Now, nobody raised their voice. I don't want to hear anybody raising their voice. I don't want to hear no interjection. No interjection. The moderator will acknowledge you and you will be given your time. No interjections. Do not raise your, no name calling. No name calling. That's not allowed, right? And then who's mostly in the audience? The audience going, yeah, that's great. Let's follow Robert's Rules of Order. You guys want to follow Robert's Rules of Order on our YouTube channels? Wouldn't that be great? That's a great idea, isn't it? That'd be awesome. That'd be swell. Hit the like button. Everybody's smashing that like button. Oh, I love this friendly shit. I love it when we all get together and hold hands and sing "We Are the World. We are the children." Right? So that's the problem. That's what I mean. Like, y'all could just capture the whole movement like that. And just like that, y'all whitewash it. Just like instantly. Just by showing up and thinking that the best way to do things is the way you've always done them in the way that makes you most comfortable. And just like that, the wisdom of any marginalized group, that lived experience, anybody with any real fucking expertise, all that shit gets thrown out the window in an instant. In an instant. Just because it's so easy for everybody in the space to go along with the status quo. Not even thinking about how much that status quo is exactly the conditions set up by the other side, y'all. And that is what I meant when I said you can't do one without the other. Christianity is the thing upholding all the isms. And when you uphold all the isms, Christianity fucking wins. So when people come up in atheist, secular, humanist spaces insisting everybody be whitesome and delightsome, that shit does not help atheist, secular, humanist at all. But it helps the white liberals who are capturing the movement assert their dominance and assert the validity and only the validity of the white supremacist way of doing things. So then everybody who interjects, talks out of turn, raises their voice, calls a name, uses profanity, or actually calls out the fucking bullshit and wants to speak to the real systematic oppression and abuses that are fucking happening. We silence those people. We ostracize those people. We get those people to shut the fuck up so that the rest of us, but who is us now? The rest of us can go along being comfortable, knowing good and goddamn well, as long as the numerically dominant demographic are white liberals who want to remain comfortable, there is all sorts of bullshit they will go along with because it continues to prioritize their comfort. And so that is how white liberals themselves become the capturers of the movements that they have been enlisted into for the benefit of the rest of the goddamn world. And now the rest of the goddamn world can't get shit done because white liberals keep occupying all the goddamn oxygen and insisting we do things the fascist way. I hope I'm preaching to some of y'all.
Because it's not some mass marketed, broad spectrum appeal commercial product. It's very real, very.
I should say to the rest of y'all should be teaching because I literally feel like when I'm ranting at my students, I don't know how they put up with me.
Vulnerable. I don't know. I'm probably going to have more thoughts on this. This is just something that I'm beginning to wrap my brain around a little bit. And I think I want to spend some time finding out what happened to a lot of these folks. Because I feel like there's a bigger story here. I feel like there's a story of the way that MAGA Christianity and consumer culture, late stage capitalism are inextricably linked, the way that they are driving the cultural narrative right now. But they're overplaying their hand and they're creating a backlash in so many different ways, in so many different segments of our society. And gosh, I wonder in the same way that we're seeing working class people gain class consciousness around the country and start to reject the narrative that we've been fed about the goodness of billionaires and how capitalism is a net good for the American people. And we see more folks saying, like, why is it that we have a profit-driven system? Why don't we have a system that's focused on meeting our needs instead of posting high quarterly earnings? What if we had a needs-based, a contentment-based, an abundance-based economy rather than an extractive, profit-driven economy? Likewise, I feel like there's some space here in terms of reclaiming faith in the same way. Why is it that MAGA Christians get to proclaim that their version, their twisted version of Christianity that really is just a cult of power, grievance, and retribution? Why is it that they get a claim that they have a mandate from God? Why is it that they get a claim that they speak on behalf of all of Christendom when really MAGA Christianity is like very, very fringe? Most Christians around the world bear zero resemblance to the evangelical cult of MAGA, the white
Okay,
Christian.
okay. This is, and I hope y'all see this. This is, and this is where we have to like understand and also resist. Okay, so again, this is not, and I have to say this repeatedly. Like, I'm a big fan of this person. This is not me being like this person is a fuckface. I don't think this person is a fuckface. All right. But this is how this happens because it's very seductive. It is very seductive to rationalize Christofascism and to say, oh, that MAGA shit, you know what? That's really just a perversion. Again, like we saw in the intro clip, that's this distortion of Christianity. And then you can, I guess, in a sense, look out over the globe and go, damn, the world's a pretty big place, and there are lots of Christians of lots of different flavors all over it. So this particular, American MAGA shit is rare, right? But again, it's very selective. You're selectively ignoring the fact that all of Christendom shares most of this depraved dogma and doctrine. And again, it also, in a sense, prioritizes and centers the sort of Western hegemony in white supremacy, right? It's basically a way of saying we don't have to worry about fighting against the problems of Christianity more broadly. We really only need to focus on this narrow MAGA expression of Christianity. And the unsaid part is because that's the part that negatively impacts me. The Christianity that causes bullshit and oppression in Africa, not my concern. I hear in most of Europe, they're pretty laid back, laissez-faire about their Christian shit. I mean, yeah, some of their governments are like officially Christian or whatever, but again, like they don't take that shit too seriously. So again, doesn't affect me. Who gives a shit? Right? Like, rather than like really like addressing the elephant in the room. Again, it's this lack of trust. If it was any other cult or any other wild and out ass conspiracy theory or clearly deluded belief, you'd be all over the fact that it's not true, up and down. And there would be almost nothing further to say about it other than this is sitting on some bullshit. I know people believe this fucking nonsense. But with Christianity, it's like there's always this very seductive temptation to find some kind of way to excuse it, to find some kind of way to say, let's, this particular white lie, I'm just going to say the way I feel it, this particular white lie is okay. This particular white lie is all right because it maintains a certain whitesome and delightsome that, one, I hate to say this, maintains the privilege of the white liberal. And this is why it's sometimes like movement capture, because again, a lot of times white liberals, y'all don't realize it, but y'all are not really progressives. You're not really part of the resistance. You're a lot of times mistaking repair and demolition, right? Y'all think this is a repair job, that we need to patch up the walls, throw on a fresh DEI themed coat of paint, and build a more friendly capitalism for everybody. Whereas, like, no, we need to burn this motherfucker to the ground and replace it with a radically new social contract and social order. And those are not compatible goals. And so you have taken over what was supposed to be the resistance, what was supposed to be burn this motherfucker to the ground, and you've come in with this mindset of let's put a Band-Aid on it and fix it and make it all better. And then part of that is because, again, as long as hate to say it, as long as y'all get to go to the mall, as long as y'all have plenty of disposable income, as long as y'all are comfortable or at least have the prospects of being so, or are, doing, so much better than everybody else, then you're not really invested in radical change, because again, to you, that feels like a lot of destabilization. That feels like a lot of instability. That feels like a lot of uncertainty. You might snicker when MAGA talks about meritocracy and DEI and throwing that shit out, but you are also grinding and hoping to leave your children economically advantaged relative to others, to ensure that they have private property and they have a certain degree of stability, that they have access to medical care, that they have access to educational and career opportunities. And you've bought into the idea that that is literally your duty, there's your responsibility as a good parent, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things. Again, you have to live within the reality of the moment, and the reality of this moment is, in fact, the capitalist hellhole. So you need to take care of yourself and your family within those confines, right? But recognizing that in order to truly be aligned with the resistance might require some deconstruction of the very things that provide us with stability as individuals, at a recognition how they contribute to our collective destabilization. And that's very difficult for people to do, right? So it's much easier to occupy this space of saying, hey, I'm part of the resistance. Hey, I'm fighting the power. Hey, I'm on the other side. It's just conveniently, I'm not really up for fighting that hard. And so that's really how it works. We don't have to, movement capture doesn't mean I have to get all the white liberals over here and then turn them into secret fascist or turn them into racist, or turn them into capitalist propaganda machines. I don't have to do that. I just have to remind them in ways that are both overt and subtle that they too benefit from the status quo. Just enough that they hesitate, question, and ultimately soften how far they're really willing to go. And then if they can turn that to decorum, if they can turn that to style, right? If they can turn that to conversations about tactics and strategy, right? Buzzwords, right? That makes white liberals sound critically engaged. When I want to talk about tactics and strategy, when really they want to talk about decorum. And how certain people are violating that decorum, and how you can't count on them to be helpful and supportive and to do the right thing if they're not pleased with your unwillingness to maintain their preferred decorum. You see that? And just like that, they're fucking captured. Just like, because now they're tone policing, right? So now they're tone policing, and we're no longer focused on the problems. I'm telling y'all, this shit is pernicious, it's subtle, and it happens fucking blindingly fast.
Nationalist cult of MAGA that is powerful in the United States right now. And, in permaculture, we say use the edges and value the marginal. And if we look to the margins of Christianity, right, the dominant narrative right now is MAGA, right? MAGA Christianity is at the center, is at the forefront. Erica fucking Kirk and TPUSA and whatever, but they aren't representative of all of these voices and perspectives on the margin, affirming voices, queer voices, voices of faith that have very, very different perspectives. I don't know. I think for me, I'm gonna spend some more time sitting with this, reading about where these folks are now and thinking about that permaculture principle of using the edges and valuing the marginal. I realize this isn't like a fully formed thesis here. This isn't like a fully formed thought. I'm just starting to think about the connections between all of these things and whether there's a potential for so many different areas of our culture, our economic life, our social life, our spiritual life, to move in a different direction. The dominant narrative in so many different aspects, doesn't have to maintain its dominance. It functionally cannot, right? All of these systems are built on coercion, control, extraction, exploitation. They're not sustainable in the long term at all. So what else is there? What else is there that's hiding out on the edges, on the periphery, that deserves to be examined and elevated, that would be more sustainable, more just, more loving? I don't know. Thanks for letting me continue to work my thoughts out on this. I'll get back to my usual political rambling later today, but I'm spending some time sitting with this, and yeah, I would love your thoughts. I'd love your input.
Okay, I
Over 1,000
love that, and I find it incredibly charming. Like I love her content. I think she's great, and I genuinely mean that. Like I recognize that. Like I could feel myself just like sitting there talking to her, and her just getting so excited to realize that there's this sort of resistance thread, for lack of a better way to put it, in Christianity. There's this Christianity that is superhuman focused, and it's down with the power, and it's based and it's woke, and we can use that. And I think I identify with that, particularly because I like to think I was that kind of Christian, or at least I was like really influenced by that type of Christian. I don't like, people always talk about like religious trauma or whatever, and I have a lot of religious trauma, but it's not like it's not what you think it is. It's more based in just the ways that I was manipulated and my family was manipulated and shit like that. But in terms of like the actual experience of faith, like I was raised by good people who mostly used Christianity to be decent people. And I'm the drummer. I always tell people I'm the drummer. I have a bad experience in church. I had a great experience in church. I'm the drummer. Only person having more fun on Sunday morning than the goddamn pastor, and even the pastor knows it. So church is always a good time for drummers. Church is showtime. So always had a great time in church, and churches always treat musicians pretty well. But so I recognize that, like, for so many of them, like, they identify with that. Like, they identify with sort of this rebellious spirit, this sort of anti-establishment Jesus or whatever. And so I think the liberalizing narrative is seductive in part because it's one I think people really believe. I think they really do believe that shit. And certainly our culture has this romanticized white Jesus who is like, people literally think of him as like a socialist. They say that shit. Now, that's totally wrong. He was not, right? There was no such thing as socialism in his time. He was a fucking, probably a fictional character, but even if that's a historical person, that historical person is a failed apocalyptic preacher, not a critic of capitalism. But more to the point, this thing is so seductive because it makes space for this Christianity, and it tells us, hey, you don't have to actually fight to take down Christianity. There are really great Christians who are already, morally and socially aligned with us. And again, I'm gonna be the bearer of bad news and say like that's not enough. It's not enough. And it's a really big problem to use that to, again, privilege their particular brand of delusions. And we would not do that with any other group, nor should we. That's not even something I would say like, oh, well, let's do that for everybody. So then it's, like we shouldn't do it. Nobody should be safe from, is your shit legit or not? And if you can't show it to be legit, then shut the fuck up. And what it also does is it overlooks all the things that we know. We know how much discrimination and bigotry is done in the name of religion. And we know that religion practically has a monopoly on socially reinforcing that bigotry. I'm not saying it's you get rid of religion and there's no more bigots or assholes. But I'm saying you get rid of religion and there are very few institutions that can enshrine bigotry and oppression into their dogma and get away with it and smile in your face about it. Every other organization, we just create laws that say you can't do that shit. And then we enforce those fucking laws. But religion, you can stand up on a table and say all faggots should burn and go to hell. Wait, it says it in the Bible. Sorry, my God said that. I didn't say that. And now instead of saying that's a hate crime, I get to say you're a great man of faith. Thank you for being so bold to speak truth in your faith. And so what white libs do when they participate in this romanticizing of Jesus. And it's very tempting. It's like, oh, I was listening to this great Christian music the other day and I realized, man, some of the motherfuckers are kind of based and they're actually kind of going hard at the church, right? It's right there. It's right there for the taking. But again, back to the title, white people don't trust white people. Why don't you really trust that humanity and then just speak to the humanity? If they're such great people, doesn't that include being honest? And if they're so honest, then wouldn't they be able to be confronted about the fact that their religion probably isn't true? Be honest and act with integrity enough to look into it if they really did insist on figuring it out and hanging on to it. Come back to the table like, you know what, you were right. I was sitting on some bullshit. Turns out snakes don't talk and virgins don't get pregnant. And I don't know why some man dying and rising 3 days later would cure the world of an imaginary curse called sin to save God from a hell that he created himself. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And then still be a good person, y'all. I'm still gonna fight for better working conditions for workers. I'm still gonna fight for equal rights for women. Am I gonna keep talking about that? Yes, y'all. Why? Because we never passed the Equal Rights Amendment in this country. And given 2025, the shit I see going on in this community and the shit I see going on with Epstein and all this shit in the world, we need a Equal Rights Amendment up in this motherfucker like we need oxygen. Something that explicitly says equal rights and equal protections for based on sex and gender, y'all. The fucking shit guaranteeing all rights to all citizens is not enough. It's 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 not enough. We need an equal rights amendment in this fucking country protecting people based on sex and gender, and we refuse to pass it. So I need you to be able to leave your Christian bullshit in the past. Recognize the role Christianity played in supporting the fact that we don't have equal rights amendment in this country. The fact that Christians are the reason that shit didn't pass. The fact that Christians do not believe women are of equal worth. Equal rights is a fucking legal concept. That is something we have to mandate by force of government to establish their rights. But you will never be able to truly fight for the equal rights of women if you are a Christian, because it is inherent to Christian dogma that women do not have equal value. So do not play in my motherfucking face and pretend you are a Christian and that you support equal rights of women. You don't. And I'm going to look you in your face and say, you don't even think women have equal value. So I don't believe you. Hello, somebody. and you recognize the harm that has been done to LGBTQ people in the name of this religion, and you recognize the way religion was used to justify the enslavement of black people, and you recognize that black people would not be Christian if not for it being forced upon their enslaved ancestors. White liberals, that is your job. Let me be a little bit more clear, white liberals. That is the only shit you have authorization to do. You don't have authorization to lead the motherfucking dance anymore. You don't have authorization to tone police. You don't have authorization to get to decide whose organizations are legit. Y'all don't get to fucking lead this dance anymore. It's your time to shut the fuck up and listen. But in the meantime, you have work to do, and your work is to spend your goddamn privilege by taking what you have learned, what you have become aware of, and what you know, and bringing it to the motherfuckers that need it, who won't listen to anybody else, and to do so for real. Not to coddle them with kid gloves, not to tell them a version that they're comfortable with, not continue to make new myths, but liberalizing myths that you can both be comfortable with in your whiteness. But to tell them, nah, yo, it's time to stop the bullshit. And yeah, like, nah, over here we ain't playing the Christianity shit. And you're gonna have to be a decent person anyway. Because you're the only motherfuckers they will listen to and take that shit from to begin with. And if you really don't believe that that's what they want, or that that's what they will do unless it is on their terms, then it's time you realize they're not our fucking friends. They're not our fucking allies. They don't share our fucking goals to begin with. And stop wasting your goddamn time on them and actually do some shit from us. See, that's the other way movements get captured. They get captured by distraction. They get captured by bullshit. See, part of what I see is I see white liberals who really themselves don't want to deal with the uncomfortables of the oppression. They don't really want to face the shit women have to fucking go through. They don't really want to face the shit black people have to go through. They don't want to be fucking real about the goddamn party of Christianity in this goddamn country is doing mass deportations of immigrants in this country right now. Concentration camps and alligator Alcatraz. And a motherfucking party of Christian values that sent the motherfucking Congress home early so they didn't have to fucking release the goddamn Epstein files. And y'all could see all of this happening, stare all that shit in the face, and still come at us like, well, yo, the Christians really, like, they want to do the right thing, man. And yo, man, some Christianities are like, fight the power, yo. Some of these Christians, man, they're like real rebellious, man. I don't want to hear it. Save it. I do not want to hear it. Save it. Until you can show me that they can acknowledge that that's bullshit, then they don't really see us as equals. They don't see me as a person. They still think it's fucking cute to wear a goddamn cross necklace in my face, knowing good and goddamn well that that's a threat that tells my atheist ass I'm gonna burn in hell. And then you gonna look me in my face and tell me I have to be nice and accepting of that belief, or else I can't count on them acknowledging my humanity. You got me fucked up. You got me all the way fucked up. So that's the real thing that's at stake here, y'all. Why don't white people trust white people? Why don't you think you can call them out on their bullshit? Why don't you think you can hold them to a standard of truth? Why don't you think that you can demand that they no longer center on themselves and focus on and listen to marginalized voices, no matter how uncomfortable that may make them? Why don't you trust that they could do those basic human things and do the right thing anyway? And what does it really say about whatever it is that white people know about what it truly means to align yourself with whiteness, that y'all do not seem to believe you can demand basic decency from these motherfuckers and expect them to act like decent human beings to the rest of us anyway? What the fuck is really going on with y'all? All right, y'all. Like I said, it's been a fucking weird one, but thank y'all for fucking showing up. That's my motherfucking rant. I think this is some shit we all need to think about. I think this whole atheist fucking movement is fucking captured by motherfuckers whose mission it is to make sure the status quo is upheld and that we don't achieve our aims and goals. And I think it's fucking disgusting. And I think if people don't start paying attention to it and fucking putting our foot all the way up some people's asses, really, really, really bad shit's just gonna keep happening. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you to all the mods. Sorry y'all had to deal with a couple trolls tonight, but I appreciate y'all for hanging in there. Thanks to everybody that's been in chat. Thanks to everybody that's watching later. Please do answer the question of the day. Always gives you an easy thing to comment about, and really, really appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all the good YouTube stuff, gang. We will see you next